Good evening, everybody. 晚上好. Today we are with Michel Kempeneers, CEO of AWEX, the agency that together Chief News Yugo Wang created, and this big event, the first EU e-commerce forum, cross-border e-commerce forum. So, I'd like first of all thanks you that today you asked us in Liège Airport, and could you please introduce what AWEX is doing?
Thank you so much. I would like to thank also CIF News for this collaboration for the first cross-border e-commerce at EU level, because it's the first time that so many people from the EU Commission, from the companies, also from China are coming to speak about what happened with cross-border e-commerce today in our region and in Europe in general. Because this is a matter and a topic that was quite well known in Asia, also in America, but maybe a bit less, since we have to start something together and to open a new history between Asia and Europe in the field of e-commerce. So my organization is in charge of export promotion to all over the world. I'm in charge of overseas department, and especially to bring the companies from my region to the new emerging countries and emerging markets. And so we can see that, for example, in China, around 500 million consumers now are able to purchase some European products. So it's time for these companies maybe to be a bit more aware about how to make business in China, how to promote, to market their products in China, how to use maybe live streaming, the social networks in China. So all these modern and digital way to make shopping. So it will be very interesting among these conferences today and tomorrow to have a global overview of the e-commerce and also some high-level speakers to speak about that.
So now let's talk about trading. In this field, what's the big trend for next year?
The trend for next year is maybe to increase more and more online platforms and e-commerce products around the platforms. We can count 620 billion US dollars in the e-commerce ecosystem now. And all the people are increasingly make more shopping online, to give maybe a bit good wealth and maybe a good happiness in their life, because they are not obliged to go to the supermarkets and to make the shoppings, and everything can come, even for the food. Because the big trend for the next year and the next years in the future is for the food and the drinks. Because we purchase in Europe maybe the majority of the products for the shoes, for the clothes, for the electronics, or for tourism, some holidays, but not yet for the food and beverages. And if in China, for example, the e-commerce is so well developed, it's because every day the people are purchasing their food for the dinner, the night, or for the lunch through e-commerce. So this big shift for the next years, I think, will be for F&B, food and beverages.
And my next question about this is live streaming. I've seen you before in the live streaming corner, and such big news. I mean, for Western audience, in China is still a reality. Everybody knows live streaming, and everybody knows how to use live streaming. And do you think this kind of tendency, this new trend, will be successfully in Europe too, or maybe not?
Yes, I had the chance to be with this wonderful and very pretty influencers, key opinion leaders from China, to promote the products from Belgium, for example. And I see that this trend is also coming in the European markets. It's like influencers, people, they have some blogs, people, they have to give some advice through the internet. So influencers are becoming quite more and more accurate to develop, and are using also by the big brands to promote their products on this way. It's coming, not as in China now, but it's coming, yeah, slowly.
And we had the opportunity a few months ago to visit Liège Airport, and such big structure with huge potential. Do you think I mean, which kind of services, in much more detail, AWEX is doing to Chinese company to better help them to enter the European market in terms of VAT or bank accounts, bank connections?
Our first job is to promote this area because we are just at the corner of when you make a triangle between Frankfurt, Amsterdam, and Paris. We are just in the middle, so the location is very perfect in the heart of the consuming market in Europe. But about that, we are also providing some services for the companies that are coming and they are following, for example, Alibaba China group they have chosen this airport to settle their first EU hub in Europe. So these companies have to be taken by the hands, give some advices how to incorporate the companies, what kind of services for VAT, for taxes, with a lot of support from the customs here in Belgium. You know that the Belgium customs it's the first time, I never see that somewhere else, as a marketing department to promote the services to the companies and to give them the best advice, not only to control, but also to give advice to the companies. And more of that, we have also some support for hiring people, because the employment, we have to look for people that want to start as marketers or to have jobs in this area. So we are very keen now to put these companies in contact with specific and dedicated companies that are hiring people for them. The last maybe support is also a support from in a cultural way, because we have Chinese staff in our company, in our agency, and we can also provide some specific in Chinese support and advices to these companies.
And what's your vision about cross-border industry? And do you think the Belt and Road Initiative could boost cross-border between Europe and Asia?
Yes, I think the benefit from the cross-border could be both, and for Asia and also for Europe. Because as I mentioned a bit earlier, the cost of the products could be very more easy and reduced through the e-commerce, because this lot of middle companies are less maybe present in the e-commerce. They are still present, but we have to cut a lot of files of these companies. And for the European consumer and the European producers, it's also benefit, because they can send the products also in the best way, because they don't have all the logistic, all the facilities, they don't have their own transport to go to China, for example. Thanks to the cross-border e-commerce, now the Chinese market is open for these companies.
And my last question is, what's your expectation for 2020? We are in December, so soon it's going to be the new year.
Yes, but for 2020, I hope that more and more SMEs will be part of this wonderful trend of e-commerce. Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, says in his conference that maybe the globalization of the economy has a bad image to the citizen, to the people, because only 60,000 companies, mainly big companies, multinationals, are dealing between the countries. What happens if it will not 60,000 but 60 million of SMEs? They can participate to this global trend thanks to the e-commerce platforms and thanks to the cross-border e-commerce. So more companies, more SMEs. You know, in Belgium, for example, 99% of the companies are SMEs. So they need new ways, and the digital economy is a new way of doing business. And so I hope for next year that more and more SMEs will be part of this wonderful journey.
For sure, for sure. So we finished for today. Thanks, Michel, for your time, and see you, of course, next year for the second edition of EU Cross-Border E-Commerce. Thank you so much. Thank you.